Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for clicking on this video. This is I Seth Kills, otherwise known as Nick. Today, we're going to be talking about Terminator 2. This movie came out in 1991, and I did a few reviews today, and I kind of want to do, when I do reviews, I kind of want to do some reviews where it's kind of today and new things that just came out recently or maybe the last few years. And then I kind of want to do a classic movie and eventually kind of get to the point where we talked about almost every single movie that I've either enjoyed or if it's new, didn't enjoy. But I probably wouldn't be reviewing anything that was old that I didn't enjoy. So most of the time, if we review movies that are old, it's stuff that I really, really liked and really, really enjoyed and resonated with. And Terminator 2 is definitely one of them. This is not going to be a play by play, more just, talking about some scenes and even showing some scenes that I thought were really great. Terminator 2, to me, was a story of a female protagonist, which is Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor, protecting her son. And, today I think they're having trouble. And we just talked about She Hulk today. And I think they're missing the point of what really makes a protagonist relatable and what makes us as the audience care for that protagonist and relate to that protagonist. And in this movie, they do it right because, there's nothing to me, being kind of a mama's boy myself, there's nothing more powerful than the mother's love or even a father's love or a brother's love or a husband's love or wife's love, just love in general. And it's that love that, creates motivation to protect someone, right? And I think when stories mix that in to the actual narrative of the story of the movie, I think us as an audience could relate to it a lot more than just, you know, having a story, I'm good at something just because, or I'm automatically doing this for no reason other than it's the only thing to do in this situation with no backstory? So, um, to me, Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, were really, even when I was a kid, were always like heroes to me, and it was because their motivation was based out of love, that motherly instinct to protect. And I think that that kind of drew me into the story a lot more. And another thing with this movie is Arnold Schwarzenegger trained with Linda Hamilton, and she, put on a lot of muscle for this movie and kind of portrayed that, badass character. And she actually had growth too. I mean, like, if you look at the first Terminator, she was just a cocktail waitress. She was kind of naive to the point of, soldiering and weaponry and all that stuff. And in this movie, you kind of see that progression where, her, character came from, naivety, teenage kind of life to a well-rounded soldier that's very keen to weapons and, tactics and fighting hand to hand. And it doesn't show it much, because it doesn't show when John and Sarah was in Mexico when she was actually training with the, I don't know if they explained in the movie, but those maybe Mexican soldiers, that they met up with in the desert. But they didn't really show that background, but they implied it, and she shows now to be very, well, educated in different tactics, and building up her strength, and a lot more knowledgeable in how to use, or how to fight, basically, than she was in Terminator One, and she presented in a way that was, very believable. And I'll play a clip right now just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. And this is when she was in the hospital. That'd be a little bit loud.
This next patient is interesting.
I mean, she's really doing that, by the way.
The delusional architecture is fairly unique.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman.
I mean, you can see
How's the
that
knee?
look on her too. I mean, it was just she pulled that character off. I mean, like if you saw her in the first movie and compared her to her character in this movie, it's like two different characters. But obviously, this is years later. She's already went to Mexico. She's already kind of trained and been a badass for a year or two, and she got caught, separated from John, but she's still training hard, and that scene kind of describes that in a very good way. So I mean, they don't really do that nowadays, where they're really kind of developing the character. They're just already good at something, or they're already great at something, and they're already boosting about it. There's really no development, and in two movies you really saw Sarah's development and why she changed her whole persona in order to protect and always protect her son, for the future of humanity's safety as well. But I mean, there's a lot of scenes too, in here where they kind of pushed the evolution of technology when it comes to movies and special effects. Um, I mean, so many memorable scenes from, the office building scene to where Arnold was, basically breaking through walls before superhero movies existed, basically as, the first superhero, being a Terminator and having the strength that he has. Um, from the chase scene where the truck and then, with the red pickup truck, to this scene where we're about to watch a little bit of, when the T1000 was stuck in the nitrogen and he's frozen and he's trying to pull away. I mean, if you look, I mean, this is not CGI. I mean, this is practical. I don't. I mean, I can't even explain how they did this, which is just awesome. Awesome. You have a lot, you know, effects today that just look fake, and this does not look fake at all. And you had my man Arnold on there. Down, get down now. But I mean, it's just scenes like that, you know, that really showed, you know, I don't know what it is, but they made movies better back then and using practical effects. I mean, don't get me wrong, they did use some early forms of CGI when it came to liquid form and when he kind of built himself back up later on in that scene. I think we'll see a little bit of it here.
We don't have much time.
I mean, I don't know how they did this, but I mean, it looks so real to the point where nowadays the CGI does not look this real at all. Insane. And it just made the story that much better when you see the realism in the effects and the story is good and the acting is great and the motivation of the protagonist makes sense. Protection of the son of her son. I mean, what's more understanding or more relatable than protecting a loved one? So I mean, this movie is a movie that we definitely watched at least 2 to 3 times a year with my mom and dad and my brother, and we enjoyed it every single time. The only thing I didn't like about it, though, that I can share is that when Arnold, you know, took out the T1000 at the end and he sacrificed himself because he had the last chip, I kind of wish that they kind of kept him, like, um, I mean, eventually there's storylines that we might not have liked, but that was in Genesis and then also Dark Fate, where the T1 or the T800, which is Arnold, stayed back and lived a life. So why couldn't this Terminator? And I understand probably because James Cameron is a better director and a better storyteller. So it just was that much more dramatic at the end when he sacrificed himself, for the sake of humanity. And I understand it for the point of the story is because, obviously, it's showing that he was a machine, but he was learning to be human. And his sacrifice, there's nothing more human than his sacrifice, him sacrificing his life in order to protect the lives of everyone else. Uh, just for the possibility of protecting everyone else because he doesn't know. I mean, as a robot, he doesn't know if they're going to create another version of the chip. He just thinks that it'll make it harder for them to create that chip if he destroys, his chip, which is ultimately killing himself. So it totally makes sense for the story, but and emotional factor. But I would have liked to see his consciousness still exists because he had so much character development as a Terminator in Terminator 2. More character development than any type of, you know, protagonist or antagonist or today. I mean, and he was just, a robot learning to be human. So I thought that whole aspect was great in the movie. How Sarah Connor was all business, how she was, very keen on protecting John in every situation to the point where she actually goes out and tries to kill a scientist that was played by who? I think his name was Miles, right? That doesn't show here. But it was a scientist that, basically created the chips and was, oh, here. Yeah, Miles Bennett was played by Joe Morton. And he did such a good job in that character. Was very believable, was very relatable. Like he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know the end result. He was just trying to help humanity. He thought he was progressing humanity. He didn't know he was opening the door to humanity's destruction. And then when he found out that that was the case, you saw it in his acting, the pain he felt, especially in his death scene. I mean, he did such a good job, especially with his breathing. He was like I remember that to this day because it was very believable. And Robert Patrick as a T-1000, oh my god, to this day he's been the best bad guy predator or bad guy Terminator. I was about to say Predator, bad guy Terminator, even better than I think than Arnold did in Terminator One. Like he was just even more menacing. Just his facial reactions, his movements, and you know he just did a very very good job. And obviously Arnold did a very good job as well. This is when his acting was starting to get better and he was starting to get a little bit more comfortable in his roles, a little bit more confident too. I mean, obviously Arnold was always confident throughout his whole life, but he kind of just he was more believable in his acting. Linda Hamilton, sorry, playing the badass this time was very believable, and she did a very good job in her acting. Edward Furlong, I think it was what probably in his teens, like 13, 14. He did a really good job. Would have loved seeing him portray that character again, which he did a little bit in the Universal ride, the Terminator ride that they did. I think it was in Universal in California. But it would have been nice to see his character again, as an adult, him playing John Connor. But sucks we never got that. But this movie, like I said, I can't say enough good things about it. And we'll go ahead and kind of, this is the ending scene where Arnold's coming up, and you see a look at Robert Patrick's face. I mean, look at that, just believable, menacing, and the protection of Sarah's mom, special. I mean, jeez, and the looks of Arnold. I mean, you just can't get enough of it, man. I miss the attention to detail in movies, regardless of what theme it is, comic book, sci-fi, drama, action, whatever, comedy. I like the attention to detail that they because in certain movies you do have to have some suspension of disbelief, obviously. But it's nice when the movie pays attention enough to details so it doesn't bring you out of the story. Like you don't have to, have an extreme amount of suspension of disbelief just in order to enjoy the movie. It has a lot of realism to it, which makes it the story a lot more relatable. And you as the viewer, sorry, words are tough. You as a viewer are more drawn into that story because you can relate to it. But I know I said that a lot in a lot of other reviews, but to be honest, that's what it is. A lot of today's, new stuff, new movies, new TV shows are bringing these characters, especially the ones in comic books, to life today, and they're bringing them without any heart. They're bringing them without any struggle. Like they're not really relatable. A lot of times they're not likable. And I think they're missing the point. Like they took their time with, characters like Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. And although his character has been everywhere and has been turning worse, especially with the last movie. But they really developed these characters, and now they're introducing characters like She-Hulk, where they're automatically great at everything. It's more of a Mary Sue type character, which is obviously a word that's been said a lot on the internet, but it's true. Like they don't have a struggle anymore, which makes it hard to relate to that character. So I don't know. I hope they learn from the mistakes that they're making. Hopefully, because hopefully they'll see with the losing of viewers and just word of mouth and different various reviews that they see. Hopefully they'll see that we don't want to see that type of character anymore. Like we want to see the characters that we can relate to, that have similar stories and struggles that we have, and overcome that. That's kind of what movies are and TV shows are. Like if we're dealing with life issues that are our struggle to us, sometimes we need to escape into a story where the person that might not be dealing with the same exact struggle, but maybe dealing with a similar struggle, or at least a similar struggle in how hard it is, and overcoming that struggle. It kind of helps us in our lives. And when we see people already great at everything, it's not really relatable because nobody is really like that. Nobody is really like great at something right away. I mean, maybe in the rare case, like in basketball or baseball or football or whatever, but it's usually something you have to work towards, that you have to practice, that you have to put into practice multiple times before you get good at it. So, anyways, sorry to go off on a little rant, but this movie's pretty old. I'm guessing, if you clicked on this video, you've probably seen it already. But there's just so many good things about this movie from start to finish, and this is still something I enjoy today. So if you haven't seen it yet, which is highly doubtful that you haven't, I suggest it. It's definitely up there with me, and I would suggest it just like I would suggest Aliens or Alien or the original Terminator, but obviously for different reasons. This is an entirely different movie than the first Terminator, in my opinion. It leans more into the action than obviously to the horror, as the first movie did. But anyways, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on the next one.